Does anyone still have food? My little one is about to die. In the homeowners group chat, a woman was pitifully pleading for help, but no one responded. By this time, nearly 3 months had passed since the heavy rain began. My heart couldn't bear it, so I replied in the group chat, I still have a pack of instant noodles here. Come over and take it to feed the child first. But when I opened the door, what awaited me were 2 burly men and that woman. The woman was holding the child, her gaze toward me filled with venom. You had food and didn't say so earlier. A single pack of noodles isn't enough for anyone. Go inside and search the place. 2 burly men restrained me, seeing me struggle. One of them lifted a chair from the living room and smashed it hard against my head. I died just like that, in my own home, given a second chance at life. Faced with the woman's plea, I turned off my phone and went straight to sleep. To my surprise, I was reborn along with other residents who had been killed because of their kindness. The heavy rain lasted for a full 3 months. No one could have predicted that this would mark the beginning of an apocalypse. The rain grew heavier, and the city's drainage system failed, leaving nearly all low-lying houses submerged. Since I live on a higher floor, I haven't been threatened yet. In the neighborhood, many residents from lower floors have started begging those on higher floors to spare them a place to rest, but soon, incidents occurred where lower floor residents killed kind-hearted higher floor residents who had offered their homes. This has left the entire neighborhood in a state of panic. No one dared to offer help anymore, for fear it might bring fatal consequences. The persistent heavy rain left the entire city shrouded in darkness, with barely a glimpse of blue sky. Not long ago, the storm damaged the power supply, leaving household appliances without electricity. Even during the day, the house remained dimly lit. I rely on the power from my portable charger to ensure I can use my phone for a while longer. Since I've always worked online and stayed at home all year round, I've stocked up on plenty of food supplies, temporarily meeting my basic dietary needs. My phone, silent for a long time, suddenly rings. In the owner's group chat, the woman from room 1302 posted a picture and then pleaded, does anyone still have food? My baby is about to die. I clicked on the picture. The picture shows a child who appears to be about 4 or 5 years old. His cheeks are sunken, as if he hasn't had enough to eat for a long time. He looks on the verge of death. No one in the group responded for a long time. Driven by maternal instinct and unable to bear the thought, I ultimately sent that message. I still have a pack of instant noodles here. I live in 1905. Come up and take it to feed the child first. A few minutes later, there was a knock at my door, but when I opened it, waiting for me were 2 burly men and that woman. 2 burly men pinned me down without a word. The woman, holding a child, glared at me with venom in her eyes. If you had food, why didn't you say so earlier? A single pack of instant noodles isn't enough for anyone. Let's search the house. With that, they began moving inside. I struggled desperately to make them let go of me. Seeing my resistance, the 2 burly men, one of them casually picked up a chair from the living room and without hesitation smashed it hard onto my head. A sharp pain shot through my skull, and my body gradually felt lighter. Consciousness began to scatter. I died just like that in my own home. The woman took all my resources. Soon after, she sent the same message in the group again. Does anyone still have food? My little one is about to die. When I woke up again, I found myself lying on the computer desk. Outside the window, the sun was shining brightly with not a cloud in the sky. I realized something. I opened my phone and noticed the time was exactly 1 month before the heavy rain. I was reborn. I almost immediately grabbed my bag and headed out the door. As a seasoned homebody, it had been far too long since I last breathed the fresh air outside my window. Especially after the heavy rain in my previous life, I never had such an opportunity again. I first went to the supermarket downstairs, then bought a large amount of supplies. The supermarket owner knows me well, and aware of my homebody nature, wasn't surprised by my bulk purchase. My boss has always been very kind to me, knowing that I lost my parents at a young age. He and his wife have always looked out for me. He lives in the same neighborhood as me, on the 10th floor of my building. At this thought, I couldn't help but add one more thing, bro. You and sis-in-law might want to stock up on some supplies at home. I heard the weather forecast says there's going to be a heavy storm in a couple of days. The boss was taken aback at first, then quickly responded, "All right then, I'll have the shop assistant deliver your purchases to the entrance later." I nodded in thanks, then I turned and headed towards the mall. Our neighborhood is in a great location, with all kinds of supermarkets and restaurants nearby, plus the roads extend in all directions, making it very convenient to get anywhere. I bought some warm clothes and a few power banks, then I found a renovation team to help reinforce the doors, windows, and the main entrance. The heavy rain soon arrived. At first, everyone could still sit calmly at home, waiting for the rain to stop. As time passed, some people grew restless as their food supplies began to run low. Testing the waters in the group chat to see if anyone still had food, surprisingly, several residents who had stepped forward to share food in the previous timeline chose to remain silent this time, compounded by the prolonged heavy rain causing water levels to surge rapidly. Many lower-floor residents began seeking ways to relocate upwards. At this time in my previous life, the supermarket owner and his wife, out of kindness, took in the family of 3 from Unit 107, but the very next day, the family of 3 from Unit 107 started asking in the group chat if anyone else had spare room. I felt puzzled. I sent a text to the boss but got no reply. Soon after, a sudden scream came from the same floor. "Help!" Through the peephole, I couldn't see clearly what was happening outside, but then a figure dashed past, looking very panicked. Then, several more people appeared one after another. They all seemed to be holding something in their hands. Immediately after, there was the sound of heavy objects colliding. My home is at the very end of the corridor, with the staircase leading downstairs on the left. I wanted to open the door to see what was happening, but reason stopped me, telling me not to open the door recklessly. Soon, something seemed to pour in through the crack of the door along with the darkness. I bent down and saw clearly with the faint light from my phone. It's blood. Blood all over the floor. I cover my mouth to stifle any sound as footsteps shuffle outside the door. A few minutes later, the noise outside finally ceases. I leaned against the wall, gasping for breath. People had already begun resorting to any means necessary to survive, while those who were kind-hearted from the start were the first to be persecuted. At this thought, I remembered the woman who lived on the first floor with me, the one who was killed by others in her past life. I clicked on her profile picture. I'm not very familiar with her, but I know she's a single mother, raising a child all by herself. I sent a friend request, and it was accepted almost instantly. After some thought, I still sent her a message. "Sis, if there's nothing urgent, try not to open the door for strangers. Protect yourself and your child." The typing indicator showed for a long time. Finally, they sent me a message. "Okay, thank you. I will." After receiving the affirmative answer, my heart felt much more at ease. I recalled that in my past life, there were still many kind-hearted people who suffered because of this. Relying on my past life memories, I sent each of them a self-protection message. I warned them not to accept any transfers from anyone. In the face of death, when it comes to the hope of survival, no one is free from greed. A few days later, just like in the previous life, the woman with the child sent that message in the group. "Does anyone still have food? My baby is about to die." Along with that same photo, I curled my lips into a cold smile. The same old trick, yet this woman never seemed to tire of it. Just then, I suddenly received a message. I clicked to open it and saw it was from the supermarket owner. "Xiao Jia, stop speaking up in the group chat. That woman is no good." I was startled for a moment but quickly regained my composure and retorted, "What's wrong, bro? Is that woman not a good person?" I already had a suspicion in my heart, and I was waiting for it to be confirmed. The other side showed typing for quite a while before finally sending a message. "Xiao Jia, there's no need to hide it from you anymore. Your sister-in-law and I have been reborn. In our previous life, those bastards ruined our family and took everything from us." Although I had already prepared myself, the moment my suspicions were confirmed, I was still shocked. "Brother, I understand now. I've also been reborn. I remember everything that happened in our past life." So that means, I compared timelines with the supermarket owner from our past lives and realized that in that lifetime, he and his sister-in-law had also kindly given up their seats to that family of 3 the day before. The next morning, when the elder brother woke up, he found himself already tied up, and those beasts violated his sister-in-law right in front of him. He tried to fight them desperately, But with his hands and feet restrained, he was caught off guard and beaten by two burly men. In the end, he collapsed in a pool of blood. Two strong men. I quickly came to my senses and asked him, "Bro, so that family of three was a woman with a child and a middle-aged man?" "Yes." But the next day another man appeared out of nowhere. I understood in my heart. So initially, the woman's room number should have been 107, but I distinctly remember, on the day I promised to bring her food, her note clearly stated 306. I think I already know why. I clicked on 306's profile picture and sent a friend request. The other side had an adorable rabbit avatar. I kept it brief. "Hello, please don't believe what that woman with a child tells you." Perhaps I was too abrupt, as she still sent a question mark in response. I gathered my thoughts and tried to explain the situation clearly in a few sentences. That woman comes to you with a child asking for food, but she brings two strong men to restrain you when she approaches. What she wants is more than just the little food you're willing to give. After a long while, a reply finally came through. "You've been reborn too, haven't you?" I finally confirmed that the residents who were killed by those people in the building in my past life, perhaps even the heavens couldn't bear to watch, have all been reborn with me. I added each of them to a separate group chat. The grudges from our past lives we will not only avenge, but we will also live well to watch them perish. A resident in the group who recognized the woman with the child spoke up. Of the two burly men, one was her husband, and the other was their neighbor, because they were the first to realize the need to plunder supplies. Adding to that, the neighbor was burly and strong, so the two roommates hit it off immediately, forming this utterly wicked team. I checked the water level. It was about to rise to the second floor soon. I advised those on the lower floors to move upward, but they absolutely must not attract the attention of that group. In my past life, apart from this woman who deceived residents with her child, there are still other beasts who would stop at nothing to survive. I instructed them not to bring too many supplies when relocating, because the power system is affected. Everyone now has to rely on stairs for evacuation. For now, I live on the highest floor among everyone, so my place should still be considered safe. There aren't many people living on my floor, and there are still plenty of empty apartments. For now, there isn't much of a threat. Everyone agreed that the residents from 306 and 411 should first move up to the supermarket owner's place in 709. Residents from other higher floors can wait a bit longer. I and the resident from Unit 1913 in the same building were responsible for first determining whether there were any surviving residents in our building. The single mother from 1913 put her child to sleep and then ventured out with me under the cover of night. We checked door by door. If there was no light seeping through the door cracks and no sound coming from inside, let's tentatively consider it an empty room. When we reached room 1908 diagonally across from me, I quietly signaled to her that there was no need to check there. She nodded and then walked toward the other side. As I passed by 1908, I double-checked to ensure the doorknob was sturdy before quickly following her to continue the inspection. When we arrived at house number 1915, she told me that this household originally had people living there, and they even had two children. I thought for a moment and nodded, then gently knocked on the door. There was no response from the door. Just as we were about to leave, a young boy's voice came from inside. "Is that Dad?" The resident of 1913 and I exchanged puzzled glances. I asked in the group chat if anyone knew where the adults from 1915 were. Everyone unanimously said they didn't know clearly. This suggests that there are most likely two children inside. Considering they might not be able to provide food for themselves, I want to take them to my house. But if I rashly ask them to open the door for a stranger like me, not only would it make them let their guard down, but it would also make it impossible to gain their trust. I thought for a moment, went back home, and grabbed a few bags of bread and milk, then crouched by the door crack and whispered inside, "Hello there, our parents asked us to bring you some food. Could you wait until we leave before opening the door to take it?" There was no response from inside. The resident from 1913 told me that the one speaking inside should be the older brother, while the younger sister is even smaller. I nodded and quickly searched a few rooms with her. Seeing that it was almost time, we decided to leave the rest for tomorrow and returned home. In the residents' group chat, the woman who had asked for help seemed anxious because no one had replied to her. She started privately messaging the residents who hadn't responded. "Everyone, Post the screenshots you received in our newly created group chat. It's nothing more than some begging rhetoric. I told everyone not to reply, but soon, a shocking message exploded in the WeChat group. As the water level rose faster and faster, that woman began to grow restless. She somehow obtained our resident list, took a photo, and posted it in the group chat. The list also marked which households had people present and which were empty. I checked the situation on the 19th floor. It matched what we had scouted. The woman threatened in the group chat, "If you know what's good for you, open the doors wide and welcome us in, serve us well, and maybe we'll spare your life." Still, no one responded. "Even if it takes us a day to search each floor, we'll find every last one of you." The woman seemed to grow angry when no one answered. 1 floor per day. So it's still early before they reach us. They should be on the 3rd floor by now, as the 1st and 2nd floors are already submerged. Our floor has over 40 rooms in total. If they have to check each one by one, forget about 1 floor per day. Even 2 days per floor would be tough. Besides, without keys, breaking down doors would take extra time. The 2 households from the lower floors who suffered the most have already moved up to the supermarket owner's place. As for the remaining residents, I can only hope they manage on their own. In the apocalypse, excessive kindness might put oneself in danger. I'm no chosen protagonist. I just want to survive. In the following days, I'll continue delivering food to the 2 children in Unit 1915, never forcing them to open their door. I discussed with others in the group chat, and we agreed to gradually move supplies up to my place and the single mothers in Unit 1913. So in the following days, we were busy preparing to receive the residents who had returned from the lower floors, while also thoroughly exploring the remaining rooms on the 19th floor. Everything went smoothly until one day. We had just settled the residents from 306 and 411 in 1913, and they had brought up some supplies the boss had stored. Suddenly, the supermarket owner privately messaged me, "Xiao Jia, something's wrong. It seems they've already reached our floor. There's been constant door opening sounds outside. We can't get out for now." My heart sank. Given the speed, they shouldn't have reached the 7th floor by now. So something unexpected must have happened in between. I asked the supermarket owner to see if he could check through the peephole what was happening outside. "Bro, you and sis-in-law need to stay safe." A reply came quickly, "All right." Because of the rebirth, the supermarket owner had also hired someone to reinforce the locks, so those people probably couldn't get in for the time being, but their safety was only temporary. I thought about it and discussed with the other residents, deciding to gather all the children together and have the mother from 1913 take care of them while the rest of us stay together to keep an eye on the supermarket owner. If anything goes wrong, we won't just sit back and wait to be slaughtered. Almost all of us, except for the children, gathered at my place. I told everyone to eat something first, then still placed the food at the door of 1915. But this time, the door gently opened. "Sister," hearing the sound, my steps paused as I turned my head. Inside the door, a pair of large, watery eyes looked at me. I slowly crouched down to meet his gaze. "Is my little sister okay?" The little boy nodded gently and then stepped aside, revealing a little girl clutching a doll, half of her face peeking out with tear stains still wet on her cheeks. Suddenly, I caught a whiff of a foul, rotting smell. I was just about to ask the little boy what had happened, but he gently lowered the security chain and opened the door. I quietly closed the door and stepped inside. The room was tidy, with a few empty food wrappers scattered on the floor. I glanced around, only to suddenly notice a figure in the slightly ajar bedroom door. I stepped forward and opened the door to the house. The stench of decay grew stronger. 2 children stood right by my feet. Inside the room, a woman hung suspended in mid-air by a rope. It looks like she's been dead for a long time. I couldn't help but step back, covering my mouth. Beside the woman was a note with complex characters, even annotated with pinyin, "Xiaoji, take good care of Nan Nan. The remaining food and drinks are all in the cabinet. Mom is a bit tired and needs to rest for a while." Tears overflowed from my eyes. At the woman's feet lay a portion of the food I had brought over the past few days. I turned my head and saw the little boy hugging the little girl tightly in his arms. I could no longer hold back and, embracing both children, I began to cry. I brought them out of 1915 because the single mother in 1913 had two other children to care for besides her own, so I took them with me. The two children have always been very well behaved. They told me that their father went out to find food a few days ago and never came back. Xiaoji has always taken good care of Nan Nan. Sometimes when the little girl is too scared to sleep, Xiaoji would pat her back and tell her stories. I told Xiaoji that the food in my house is in the fridge. And there's also some in the storage room. Water is stored in the kitchen. Xiaoji obediently nodded, but every time he took food, he would only take a little, letting his younger sister eat first before having the leftovers himself. He knew how hard it was to get food during these times, so he cherished it more than anyone else. Thinking of the food beneath the feet of the dead woman, my nose stung with sorrow. Perhaps he truly believed that his mother was just too tired and taking a nap. So when he had something to eat, he also wanted to save a little for her, so she would have something to eat when she woke up, or perhaps, he had already known the truth all along, but he knew that only by becoming strong himself could he protect Nan Nan, and their great mother, to ensure her child could still survive. What she gave was the last of her own life. We made a plan and decided to send someone down first to check the situation on the 7th floor. The person hadn't even set off yet when WeChat suddenly vibrated with a new message. Big Brother 709 has left the group chat. The supermarket owner suddenly left the group chat, leaving us staring at each other in the room, unsure of what had happened. Then let's not act rashly for now. After I finished speaking, I motioned for everyone to sit down first, then stared intently at the door. I asked Xiaoji to take Nan Nan into the bedroom to rest first. At that moment, my phone vibrated again. Xiaojia, do you still have any food left? I don't have any here. Can I come up to get some from you? Several people around me also noticed the messages they received on their phones at this moment. Apart from the different salutations, the content of the messages we received was almost identical. If it were the supermarket owner, he definitely wouldn't have sent messages like this. Because it's impossible for him to have no food, and he knows that since we're gathered together, he wouldn't distribute it to each of us individually. The only possibility is that the person holding his phone right now isn't him. Additionally, the sudden exit of the supermarket owner from the group chat earlier might have been to protect the rest of us survivors. The college student from room 933 and the young couple from room 1101 successfully joined us during the night. The young couple from 1101 were survivors discovered during the evacuation of lower floor residents. They voluntarily handed over their food and other supplies, and both seemed very honest, so we decided to include them in our group. When talking about their past lives, the couple mentioned they were beaten to death by a boxing coach who was trying to steal their food. In other words, besides that deceitful woman, we have another formidable opponent, the boxing coach. Now our numbers are more than enough to handle those three, and the only remaining issue is, the boxing coach from the previous life hasn't shown up yet. The college student living in room 933 suddenly raised a finger to his lips in a silencing gesture, then lay flat on the ground, pressing his ear tightly against the floor. Someone's coming. In the silent corridor, the sound of footsteps was unusually distinct. The crisp impact of shoe soles against the tiled floor echoed clearly. The approaching person seemed unhurried, and judging by the footsteps, it appeared to be just one individual. We all fell silent, our gazes fixed intently on the doorway. The sound of footsteps quickly faded away, and we secretly breathed a sigh of relief. But just seconds later, a knocking sound suddenly echoed through the hallway. The knocking was not loud, though it wasn't our house. Our hearts were all in our throats. We couldn't tell which door he was knocking on. I quickly took out my phone and sent a message to the woman in 1913. The reply came quickly. I heard it too. It's okay. I've already settled the children, don't worry. Seeing the messages in the group chat, the tense atmosphere finally eased slightly. Soon, the knocking outside the door became more urgent and forceful. A sharp whistle sounded, and the knocking stopped. Next, footsteps approached from a distance. The footsteps faded away. I pressed against the peephole, straining to see as much as its limited view allowed, found nothing unusual. We didn't sleep well that night. The supermarket owner and his wife lost contact with us, and who exactly was knocking on the door last night? In a daze, I was awakened by someone. They were planning to find a way to block the stairway entrance on my floor, but the supermarket owner and his wife were still missing, and I feared that by sealing it off, We might be closing the door to their survival, at an impasse. We decided to split up. Rather than waiting passively, we chose to take the initiative and form a pincer movement. A college student from room 933 pried open a few empty rooms with a wire. We spread out to make sure we wouldn't all be taken out at once. Last night might have just been a test. The lower floors were likely already occupied by that group. At this thought, I swallowed hard. After finishing my meal, I sat on the sofa to rest. There might be a tough battle tonight, and I needed to conserve my energy. Now I am the only one left in the house. I have already entrusted Xiaoji and Nan Nan to others for care. Because of this rebirth in this life, I'm not sure if others have also been reborn. If those evil people have also been given the chance to be reborn, then this house of mine would be the most dangerous place. To protect Xiaoji and Nan Nan, I could only send them to other rooms. Because of the encirclement, there had to be bait. As night fell, footsteps echoed once more, but this time, as he passed by, I deliberately made a sound inside the house. Sure enough, the footsteps stopped outside my door as I expected. Then, a knock on the door. I trembled, hugging my legs, trying my best to calm myself down. On the table was the knife I had specifically brought from the kitchen. The knocking grew urgent, just like last night. I picked up the knife, gripping it tightly in my hand. Before long, the hammering outside grew louder and louder. The door of the house was battered by heavy blows, teetering on the verge of collapse. With a bang, the door was smashed open. In the pitch darkness, a burly man had a cigarette dangling from his lips, its tip glowing crimson, while he gripped an axe in his hand. I raised my knife and charged forward, only to be effortlessly subdued by the leader of the group. He grabbed me by the neck, his immense grip nearly suffocating me. A familiar voice suddenly came from behind. Xiong, let it go. It's still useful. A figure emerged from behind the burly man. It was the man from the young couple we had picked up along the way. My pupils dilated sharply. The man looked at me with an amused expression. Oh, you found me. The burly man called. Xiong released me, and I collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Didn't expect that, did you? I've actually been among you all along. Seeing how scared you were of me gave me such a thrill. Ha ha ha. So, you're the boxing coach? I asked hoarsely. The man snorted disdainfully. Can only blame you for being so stupid, not even noticing this. Xiong, tie her up and throw her in the hallway. I know where the rest are. The burly man bound my hands and feet, then lifted me onto his shoulder. They walked up to room 1903. In this room are just my wife and those kids. No threat at all. The man spoke while knocking on the door. The woman from the young couple opened the door, holding two children by the hand. Then came 1909, 1911. 1909 is occupied by a college student, 1911 by a middle-aged couple. Break the door down. The man finished speaking and looked at me smugly. Am I right, Xiao Jia? The burly man, as if receiving some command, threw me to the ground and then began frantically hacking at the door with a fire axe. The door was broken open, and the burly man entered the house to search for people, but came out empty-handed. After exchanging glances with the man, he headed toward 1911 again. Breaking it open, there was still nothing inside. The man turned his head, his eyes bloodshot as he stared at me. How is this possible? Where are the people? What did you do with them? This wasn't part of the plan. I laughed, ignoring him. The burly man slapped me across the face. My cheek burned, and something warm trickled down the corner of my mouth. I still kept my mouth shut. The man pulled Nan Nan from his girlfriend's hand, took a folding knife from his bag, and pressed the tip of the knife against Nanan's face. Nanan's small face was filled with terror. Tears welled up in the eyes looking at me. The man shouted threats at me. Tell me where the others are. Is there another ambush? I didn't expect you to be so smart. You actually found me. Listen up, everyone else. If you know what's good for you, come out on your own, and I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, when I find you, you might hide now, but you can't hide forever. The last sentence was clearly directed at the others who had already hidden. I grimaced, the pain from the hit throbbing sharply. Is bullying the weak all you're good at? The man seemed provoked by the words and raised the small knife, slashing toward Nanan's face. With a thud, the man collapsed to the ground, two streams of blood slowly trickling down his head. Nan Nan cried out and ran toward Xiaoji, behind the man, his girlfriend stood holding an ashtray, muttering to himself as if in a daze, "Don't hurt her, don't hurt the child, stop hitting us." Seizing the opportunity, I shouted loudly, and the door of room 1908 quickly swung open as several people rushed out carrying weapons. Though the burly man was strong, he couldn't withstand the combined attack of several people. The burly man was quickly overpowered, and we took the opportunity to tie him up. The woman who had just knocked out the boxing coach helped me up and untied the ropes for me. "Are you okay?" she asked with concern. I shook my head and then took her hand. "Thank you." She was taken aback for a moment but quickly shook her head in response. "No, I should be the one thanking you." Not long after, the supermarket owner also came up the stairs, saying everything had been taken care of. When we reached downstairs, the woman who had deceived me in my past life was already tied up, leaning against her man who had fainted. The supermarket owner and his wife were no match for the woman and her man in terms of strength, so they chose to target their weaknesses instead. That child. They took advantage of the couple's inattention to place candy at the stairwell. The child was lured over. As he picked up the candy, the supermarket owner gently drew him closer, saying he had other delicious treats. The little boy hadn't eaten for so long that he was practically skin and bones from hunger. By the time the woman remembered her son, her primary tool for deception, the child had already been taken into their house by the supermarket owner's wife. While they were searching, the supermarket owner secretly struck down the woman's husband with a vase. After knocking her husband unconscious, everything became much easier to handle. The only thing that troubled them was, the food the woman obtained by using the child as a pretext was always given to the child in tiny portions, just enough to keep him alive but never enough to satisfy his hunger, even though he was their own flesh and blood. In their eyes, it wasn't as important as a bite to eat. This formed a stark contrast with the woman from 1915. By the time the man from that young couple woke up, we had already gathered all four of them together, 2 strong men, a con artist, and a boxing coach. "Everyone's here." The man glared furiously at his girlfriend beside me. "How dare you betray me? Do you believe I won't kill you?" I stepped forward and slapped the man across the face. "You won't get that chance. Aren't you curious how I found you?" I first noticed something off about that young couple during a food distribution, when I handed the man 2 pieces of bread and he raised his arm to share with his girlfriend. His girlfriend suddenly covered her face with her hands, and the man noticed her instinctive reaction, trying to shield her from my view with his body. When the man glanced over, I pretended to look away as if I hadn't seen anything. Only when the woman realized the situation wasn't directed at her did she cautiously accept the bread. Her eyes were almost filled with fear. Perhaps to deceive us, the man hadn't laid a hand on the woman for a long time, yet occasionally his movements would trigger some defensive reactions from the woman beside him. I realized that this seemingly loving young couple before me might not be exactly what they appeared to be, until one day, when the others went out to search for supplies, I stayed behind with the woman from the couple. I spoke bluntly. "He hits you, doesn't he?" The woman paused her hand while picking up the trash and remained silent. "You know, if you side with him too, we might not stand a chance at all." The woman was visibly moved, and I had already guessed it at that moment. Perhaps from the very beginning, that young couple had already reached an agreement with the 3 people who had a child with them. They help each other and provide convenience to obtain resources. "I don't believe your family will be safe after we die." I'm not threatening her. She's not stupid. She should know that those people would do anything to survive. If problems arise later and supplies run short, she too could not escape death. Finally, as if she had made some kind of decision, she took a deep breath. "What do I need to do?" This was the beginning of my plan. The supermarket owner and his wife were merely reminded by me, after I learned they had taken in new people during the transfer, that for safety's sake, they might consider moving temporarily to the adjacent storage room. That storage room was an empty property the supermarket owner had bought specifically for storing supplies after his rebirth, and no one lived there. Sure enough, by evening, their door was violently broken down, but the group of robbers found no one inside. Have the supermarket owner leave the group chat, pretending to lose contact with us, was merely to create an illusion for the boxing coach. They are still around, forced to leave the group to protect the others. Sure enough, that foolish informant bought it. The supermarket owner and his wife had long since hidden in 1908 during their break. A place I rented after my rebirth to have an additional hiding spot. Whenever the boxing coach wasn't around, would gather everyone to discuss the next steps. The boxing coach knew nothing about this, and last night, after he tipped them off, they sent someone to check the situation while also intimidating us. Everything they see is merely what we want them to see. Everyone should hide in the shadows according to our real plan. The boxing coach's girlfriend, as someone we've turned, has the opportunity to get close to him. Therefore, she is an exceptionally crucial part of our plan. Fortunately, the plan wasn't disrupted. We succeeded. After hearing my words, the boxing coach went berserk, muttering incessantly about killing his girlfriend, and his girlfriend, upon hearing his words, simply said calmly, "You've already killed me once, I'm not afraid anymore." I stared at her in shock, only then noticing the tears on her face. It turned out that in her past life, the woman and the boxing coach had met and fallen in love by chance, but after marriage, the boxing coach changed completely, not only verbally abusing her but even physically assaulting her. The woman was beaten until she miscarried, but the man threatened her, saying if she left, he would find her parents and kill them all. Terrified, the woman had no choice but to stay by the man's side. When the apocalypse arrived, the man resorted to violence to obtain supplies. The woman tried to stop him, but he shoved her away, causing her head to hit the marble floor, leaving her bleeding profusely. The man just gave her a disgusted look and turned to leave. So, from the very beginning, it wasn't just us who were reborn. The woman who used children to deceive kind-hearted people knew her plan wouldn't work anymore. So she sought an alliance with the boxing coach who survived until the end in the previous life, even though they were clearly enemies at the end of their previous life. But in front of villains, as long as there are common interests, it means cooperation is possible. So they took advantage of the early days of the apocalypse to loot many people's homes, to infiltrate our ranks. The boxing coach and his girlfriend were sent out again, because no one had seen them in their previous lives. They had always been the masterminds behind the scenes. In this life, they are truly getting involved. We locked those 4 people in 1905, then everyone dispersed to stay in 1913 and 1908. As for that woman's child, we kept him with us. After all, he was innocent. The crisis seemed to have been resolved. I gathered the remaining survivors and pooled the supplies stored by the supermarket owner and myself, enough to sustain us for quite some time, yet the apocalypse raged on. But that's a story for another time. The storm outside still poured, but the gloom in our hearts had long since lifted.